this topic is not necessarily the most pleasant. However, I really think that it's imperative that we have this discussion because as a responsible adult, there's certain things that we should have in place for emergencies. Welcome back, guys. So today I wanted to talk to you about something that I feel is very important. As I said, it's not the most pleasant thing to talk about, but I think it's something that's very important to talk about if you live in the US, but more importantly, if you live in a different country. Okay, if you saw my previous video before, you know that I had a health scare while I was here not too long ago. And then recently, Cartes Ross of Move Abroad and Thrive had a really scary episode where he had to be rushed to the hospital last week or a few days ago. And you just never know what's going to happen. So the way things work here in Mexico is they usually go to your family, your next of kin, your spouse, your parents, your children, to make decisions for you in the event that you are not able to make decisions for yourself. However, I think that in terms of dignity, I think in terms of autonomy, you are going to want to make your wishes known. Not only that, but you're going to want to ensure that the person that is making the decisions for you in the event that you are not able to make them for yourself is competent. They're going to make decisions based on knowledge, information, accurate information, not based on emotion, conspiracy theory, extreme religiosity, or any other thing that may cause them to make bad decisions for you, something that would be against what you might wish for yourself. If you've been watching my previous videos, you know when I was working, I was a nurse. I worked actively as a nurse for about 26 years or so. And sadly, I have done CPR on a lot of people that, oh my God, it was horrible. Let's just put it like that. I mean, you're trying to do CPR on someone's 100-year-old great-grandmother, and you're cracking their sternum, you're breaking all their ribs. There's no dignity in that, and then they died anyway. Or they didn't die, but they lingered 4 or 5 more days. For elderly people, it definitely is a must. But not only that, you never know what is going to happen to you, whether it's a stroke, a heart attack, or you wind up with a terminal illness like cancer or something else, and there's no hope for recovery. What are your wishes? Do you want CPR in the event that your heart stops beating? Do you want to be put on a ventilator? Do you want a feeding tube? These are all things that you may know, your family may know, but is your family going to follow that? In healthcare, they have an obligation to treat you, which means that quite possibly there is no hope for recovery for you, but they're going to put you on a ventilator. Or they know if they do CPR, most likely it will not revive you, but they have to do it. They can't just let you die. Then you need documentation in place so that your wishes will be followed according to how you want the end of your life to be. This doesn't necessarily only apply to old people. If you're in a car accident and they determine that you're brain dead, do you still want to be put on a ventilator? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're 30 years old, 40, 50, whatever. You know, what do you want in situations like that? In the US, what you would do is most states already have these documents pre-printed out. All you have to do is take it to an attorney or a notary You sign it with the witnesses, and boom, now you have your living will. Mexico has not had anything in terms of a living will or anything like a living will until 2016, when they put the law into effect of being able to die with dignity. So, as you know, medical costs here in Mexico are very inexpensive compared to the US, and so are legal fees, so are attorney fees. So it's not something that you really have to worry is going to cost you a whole lot of money to get this paperwork in place. So in Mexico, typically your next of kin, your family, will be the ones to make decisions for you in the event that you can't make them for yourself, which would be your spouse, your parents, or your children. Depending on the dynamics of your family, you may have a spouse that you don't want making decisions for you, or a parent, or even one of your children. So these type of documents ensure that the doctors in the hospital are going to follow your wishes. But there's always some gray areas. And for those gray areas and for your wishes to be made known, here in Mexico, they have a document which is like a living will. Let me look. It's called a Declaración de Voluntad, or a Ley de Voluntad Anticipada, which is basically Declaration of Anticipated Will. This is something that a notary or an attorney can draw up for you. Of course, it'll be done with two witnesses signing it, and then that document will be recorded with the Secretary of Health, and you will receive a hard copy, which is what, if something happens to you, your family will bring this to the hospital with you and make sure that they are aware of your wishes, that paperwork is known. In this paperwork, what you're going to do is you're going to name a person who you want to be your representative. So hopefully it's somebody you trust that is going to make the right decisions for the areas that are in the gray. Meaning, it may say, I don't want artificial nutrition, I don't want a ventilator, I don't want CPR in the event that I have a terminal illness or I'm permanently unconscious, things like that. But sometimes there's some little gray areas. So you want to make sure that the person that is making the decisions for you that are not necessarily contained in that document is somebody that you really trust is going to follow along with what you would necessarily want. What's unique about the document here in Mexico as opposed to the US, you also can name who you do not want to make decisions for you. If you have an estranged family member, or you have a family member that just makes some terrible decisions in life and you do not want them anywhere near you making decisions, if something were to happen to you, well, you can make sure you put their name in this document. So if something happens to the first person you name and you name a secondary, you can say, I don't want it to be this person. And it doesn't matter if it's a parent, a spouse, a child. You can also make sure that you put their name in there. I am not clear on whether you can name someone that is living in the United States. I assume, and I said assume, that you can, and then if something were to happen, they can fly over and, start making decisions for you. So to reiterate, it doesn't matter how old you are, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, whatever. You want to make your end of life wishes known. End of life doesn't necessarily have to be when you get old. It could be in the event of a serious illness or accident. You want to have autonomy over your own self, and you want to dictate how you will be treated in a situation like that. And these documents are legally binding, so regardless of whether a family member decides that that's not what they want, these are your wishes and this is what they're going to have to abide by. The next thing that is very important in Mexico is a will if you are a property owner. Typically, like I said, everything goes by family relation. And what they'll do is take your property and they will divide it up equally to your heirs. I do not know if things will pass to your spouse 100% and then, or your spouse will get a portion and then your children will also get a portion. I am not sure. But regardless, a will is imperative in any country. Even in the US, you need to dictate what you want your assets to be, how you want them distributed. If you don't have a will, the law is going to do things the way they want, or they dictate that it's going to be done. Red tape is a thing in any country, and all of these documents that you put in place cuts the amount of red tape that you're going to have to go through. In the event of a death overseas, you're going to want to go to the consulate or the embassy, and you're going to want to file a notice of death abroad. So they will give you a document, and if that person has assets of any kind or business that needs to be handled back in the US, they're going to need that document. So make sure that you notify the embassy or the consulate of a death abroad. The last and final documents that I feel are very, very important for you to have, no matter how old you are, no matter what health status you're in, whether you could be healthy as an ox. I feel that these papers are extremely important, and that is a power of attorney. Now, there is power of attorney for finances, there's a power of attorney for health care. You don't necessarily have to have the same person doing both. Maybe somebody you trust more for health care, but you don't want them touching your money. Maybe somebody you want to handle your finances, but you don't want them making health care decisions for you. So there are definite options, but a power of attorney will allow a person to handle your affairs in the event of mental incapacity or physical incapacity. So let's just say you were in an accident and you broke 12 bones and you had to have surgery and they kept you sedated, but your husband or your wife needs to pay bills. They need to be able to go to the bank and withdraw money. They need to be able to make phone calls on your behalf or situations like that. Well, the power of attorneys will allow them to do that in the event that you are unable to do these things for yourself. They only go into effect in that situation, and they expire when that situation is resolved. So it doesn't mean that that person can just anytime they feel like it go to the bank and clean out all your money. No, the bank has to have the documentation to show that you are in fact incapacitated at the moment and you are unable to make these decisions for yourself. If you're a single parent and you're here in Merida, and let's say you fall down the steps and knock yourself out and you're out for 3, 4, 5 days, what's going to happen to your child? Have you put anything in place for that? I know you don't want Mexican social services to come and take your child and put it in some type of foster home. So what are you going to do? You need to have paperwork in place. So the point that I'm trying to make here is there are documents to ensure that your wishes are followed. We need to make sure that we have these things, and they're things that we don't typically think about. We're just trying to figure out life in a whole nother country, and there's enough that we have to deal with, but you also got to think on the unfortunate side of things. What am I going to do if this happens? So it's better to be prepared than to be caught unprepared. And the responsible thing to do, not only in Mexico, but in the US. It's just, something that everybody should have, but not a lot of people bring to the table and not a lot of people advocate for. I do, because I've seen some horrible situations as a nurse and had to participate in some horrible situations as a nurse where I've watched some family members fight over whether or not they're going to let so-and-so have surgery. No, I don't want so-and-so to have surgery. And family members have almost come to blows. Meanwhile, that person is laying in the bed unconscious or just very, very ill and can't even make those decisions for themselves. And they're not listening. The people are not listening to the doctor's recommendations. You got one family member who's a conspiracy theorist and think everybody out to get them, or they gonna put some microchip in them, or just all kind of craziness. Specify what you want for yourself. Be autonomous, advocate for yourself, get the responsible paperwork done, and rest assured to know that your wishes are going to be followed. And trust and believe, nothing is foolproof. We all know this, but yeah, it's better to have this than not have it. So guys, I hope this was informative to you, and take care and keep moving. Bye.